We don't tend to have too many problems when we're breathing calmly and gently and easily through our nose. When we have these problems, we tend to be breathing much more deeply and very often breathing through our mouth. At the moment, Western medicine doesn't recognise this over-breathing or hyperventilation until the symptoms have really kicked in. So what we tend to do is focus on trying to identify and get rid of triggers. And then if that doesn't work, we just use symptomatic medications or machines to try to fix the problem. But what Buteyko is saying is it's the fact that you're breathing too much in the first place, which is the fundamental cause of the problem. So if we can fix the fundamental cause, we can stop the symptoms occurring and therefore stop the need for taking medications and machines. Now, Buteyko knew right away when he first started to develop the method in the 1950s that it was going to be controversial. Because just a quick look through the available medical literature at the time in the 1950s showed him that there didn't seem to be any other instance on record of people experimenting with reducing depth of breathing. Most people back then involved in breathing research and breathing techniques were getting people to breathe more deeply, and it's still largely true today. So before he did formally announce his findings, he did a significant amount of research. Then when he did present all this information, he had what he thought was such an overwhelming case. He thought his colleagues would embrace his work, change their own practice, implement his ideas, and then nominate him for the Nobel Prize for all this wonderful work that he'd done. Well, it didn't quite work out like that. His colleagues were stunned by the claims that he was making and said to him, look, you must be crazy. How can you be claiming to treat these diseases by something other than drugs or surgery? So initially he was rejected and it was back to the drawing board. What happened in the former Soviet Union is a long, complex story, so I'll just tell it to you quite briefly today. Despite this initial setback, he continued to teach and develop the method. He trained other practitioners in the method. It was being taught widely throughout vast areas of the former Soviet Union, throughout the 1950s, 60s, 70s, into the 80s. Many times there were public outcries. People wanted to know why was the method available in some places, not in others. Why did some doctors refer people to Buteyko practitioners? Why did others not? Anyway, finally, after significant media intervention, clinical trials and public outcry, finally use of the Buteyko method was officially endorsed in the Soviet Union under ministerial order. And there were a further 2 subsequent endorsements of it in Russia in the late 1980s. So the point being, it took over 30 years from the time he made the discovery to the time that the method was officially accepted. And even when it was officially accepted, it was still not being properly implemented into the health system, largely because of the terrible social and economic circumstances at the time. In the mid-80s, with all the political changes that Russia was experiencing, people's concerns were very fundamental. They wanted food to eat and a roof over their head, and they weren't interested in coming out like you on a Monday morning and listening to someone like me talk about changing your breathing pattern. So by 1990, Buteyko was frustrated with this lack of progress in Russia and decided it was time to get the method out to the rest of the world. And fortunately for us, Australia was the first country chosen.